Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. Tonight we are going to do one of the most exciting, fun Masechtot in all. One of those fun stories in all of Shas. It's a very long story, and for that reason, I am going to try to cover ground without questions, unless it's like immediately on the point. But if you have a broader question, let's try to hold it, get through the entire story. We're going to learn. There's a lot to learn from this story. A lot of key characters. We have the Nasi, we have the Abbedin, we have Rabbi Akiva, we have Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we have we have Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, we have tons of celebrities. This is a celebrity showdown tonight. We're going to learn about a machloket between two rabbis, and this machloket started to become a little bit unpolite, and it went a little bit too far. And once this machloket got a little bit too far between the rabbis had to get in to break up the fight. And then because of that, they made some changes, and they removed a rabbi from his post. Then they had to set up a rabbi search committee. And after they set up a rabbi search committee, they were dealing with all sorts of backlash. And they were anticipating to have to deal with backlash. And then after that, the first rabbi made peace, so they wanted to bring that first rabbi back after they had the second new rabbi in place. And that was a whole Shalom Bayit issue. And there's a lot of key characters and a lot of important stories. It's a fun story. It's a lot of drama. And there's a lot of a lot of good things to learn from the story. We're going to get started. This is on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Bet. It's a lot of Gemara. And I don't go so fast, but tonight it's a story. We got to cover it. Next week is Rosh Hashanah, so we don't want to take a break in between. I'm going to go through this story. I will try to address questions at the end. Okay, here we go. Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah Daf Chav Zayin Amud Bet. If you are looking at the R scroll, what did I say? I said Rosh Hashanah. Okay, my mind is there, my heart is there. We're in Gemara Berachot Daf Chav Zayin Amud Bet 27B-2. If you're looking at the R scroll, it's 27B-2 on the right column. There's a break that says Tefilat Ha'erev Ein La Keva. Let's get started. Share screen. The recording is already on, right? The recording is already on. Okay, so the Gemara is reminding us of a line of the Mishnah. Remember, we had in the Mishnah Tefilat Shachar Ad Chatzot Yibida Mirad Arba Shot. The end time of Shacharit is either 4 hours or midday. We have that machloket. In Tefilat HaMincha, the Gemara Mishnah tells us Ad Erev, Rabbi Omer Ad Plag HaMincha. It's either until evening, which is sunset, or until Plag HaMincha, which is an hour and a quarter before sunset. And we had this whole machloket about whether we hold like Rabbi Yehuda or we hold like Chachamim. We had like Rabbi Yehuda by Shacharit, by Mincha. It wasn't so clear whether we hold like Chachamim or like Rabbi Yehuda. So we said Avad Kamor Avad, Avad Kamor Avad. The end time of Mincha is consequential for the start time of Arvit. Okay? Whenever time Mincha ends, that's the start time of Arvit. So that's why you have this time between Plaga Mincha and sunset that according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's Arvit time, and according to Chachamim, that's still Mincha time. So we had this whole big discussion. We called it the Bermuda, what did we call it? I think we called it the Bermuda Triangle time section. I forgot what we called it. Anyway, now we're going to talk about Arvit. Our Mishnah told us Tefilat Ha'erev Ein La Keva. The Arvit doesn't have a set time. Does not have a set time. That's what we're going to start off with now. The Mishnah tells us Tefilat Ha'erev Ein La Keva. The evening prayer is not fixed to a specific hour. What does that mean? That means the time of Arvit doesn't have its own time. It comes after the other time, after Mincha, before Shacharit. So Arvit in and of itself doesn't have time. Remember, Shacharit has to go until midday or the 4th hour, because according to Chachamim, the Korban of the morning would come until midday, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Korban of the morning comes until the 4th hour. Same concept by Mincha. It's a machloket of when the korban of the afternoon is brought. Every day there was 2 korbanot. The first one corresponds with shacharit. So shacharit prayer corresponds with the tamid of the morning. So the times align. The mincha prayer aligns with the korban of the afternoon. So the times align. What about Arvit? Arvit is just after mincha, before shacharit. So it doesn't have its own fixed time. It's just when the other times don't apply. But the Gemara is going to say, why did you say it that way? It was a confusing way of saying it. My ein la keva. What does it mean that it's not fixed? If what you're trying to say is that you could pray all night long, so say very simply, the tefillah of Arvit is all night long. It's a lot easier. Why do you say Arvit doesn't have its own set time, so you have to deduce from the times of the other ones, and then you know when it is? Just say it's all night long, because that's what it is. And the start time, you know. Just say it's all night long. So Ela mai en la keva. Why does it say, the Mishnah say that the Arvit does not have its own fixed time? Keman de amar tefilat Arvit reshut. Because it holds like the opinion. The Mishnah holds like the opinion that the prayer of Arvit is reshut. Reshut means optional. That it is not a mandatory prayer. So instead of saying the time of Arvit is all night long, that implies that you have to say it, and you have all night long to say it. But when you're saying it doesn't have a set time, the implication is like there's no requirement to say it. Yeah, when you say it, you could say it all night long, but who said you even have to say it? You don't even have to say it. What? So Tosfot explains that when we say Tivlat Reshut, Tivlat Arvit Reshut, it's optional. That doesn't mean that you decide, you flip a coin, you decide how do you feel tonight. What that means is, if there is another mitzvah that comes in conflict with Arvit, and that other mitzvah you're going to lose out on, so then put Arvit aside. Which means Arvit, not that it's optional altogether, but that when it comes against another mitzvah, the other mitzvah will take precedence. That's not necessarily true at Shacharit. Not necessarily true. If you have, I'm going to pray Shacharit now, or do something else now, or if I'm in the middle of Shacharit now, you continue praying. Mincha and Shacharit and Mincha are more obligatory in and of themselves. Arvit is obligatory in and of itself, but if there is a mitzvah overet, which means there's another mitzvah, that by not doing this, by praying Arvit, I'm going to miss out on that. Do that one. Do that one instead. So Arvit becomes a like second tier mitzvah almost. Okay.
There's no concept of osek mitzvah in Arvit.
That there is a concept of osek mitzvah, but we're talking about before you decided. The concept of osek mitzvah is if I'm already involved with one mitzvah, am I patur from another mitzvah? Here, the concept is that Tifilat Erev Reshut, Tifilat Arvit is Reshut, which means that if there's another mitzvah that is over, that I'm going to lose out on that, then Tifilat Arvit you don't have to do. Now, to be clear, this is not, practically speaking, we don't hold like this. Practically speaking, Arvit is required. We pray it. However, there is a key difference in the Tefillah of Arvit in our synagogues. What is the key difference of Arvit versus Shacharit and Mincha? You got it. There's no chazara. There's no chazara. Why is there no chazara for the tefillah of Arvit? Because tefillat Arvit Reshut, there is a lower level of requirement for Arvit. There's a lot that comes out of this, of the fact that tefillat Arvit is Reshut. And this is one of the things is that there's no chazara. But let's stay focused on the story. Our Mishnah is of the opinion that tefillat Arvit Reshut. We do it, we're required to do it. If someone has a conflict between Arvit and another mitzvah that they're going to lose out on, then Arvit takes the back seat to that other mitzvah, according to Tosfot. Okay?
Just give an example of something. You can always just push it off. If it's a mitzvah that.
Yeah, let's think of a mitzvah overet.
It's not going to take the whole night in a mitzvah. It's not going to be like an 8-hour mitzvah. There's no way you have the whole night.
Here, let's see if it.
Visiting the
It's
city.
not an 8-hour.
Yeah, for example,
Even that doesn't take 8
yeah. So footnote 18 gives an example. It's a good question. Footnote 18 spells it out. This does not mean that one has a choice whether or not to pray Arvit. Rather, it means that if one has the opportunity to either perform a mitzvah whose time will pass or recite Mariv, then we shall say that he should perform the mitzvah. Accordingly, the meaning here is that it is compared to a mitzvah, when compared to a mitzvah that the time will pass, Ma'ariv is elective. Okay, I think of a mitzvah that can be done at night. For example, a mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. Right? There, you want to go visit the sick, and the sick, they're saying he could only accept visitors at this time, and you wanted to pray Arvit, and there's only an hour left to the time of Arvit, and you know that if you're going to go see him, you're going to miss out, then you don't pray Arvit. Now, yeah, you're right, you could just push it off, but let's imagine that you can't. Let's imagine you're in the last hour of the night, or whatever that situation is. You can construct a situation that by doing this other mitzvah, I will miss out on praying Arvit. So, Tevilat Arvit Reshut, it's optional with respect to a time-bound mitzvah that's going to pass. That's an example. Okay, let's keep going. Now, that's why our Mishnah doesn't say Arvit is all night long, because that implies that you're required to say it. But you're not necessarily required to. There are situations in which you're not required to. So it picks like a different way of saying that Arvit doesn't have its own fixed time, which means that its times are coming from whenever Mincha doesn't apply and Shacharit doesn't apply. But you don't necessarily have to always even say it. Now, this was a major machloket, which we are going to get into now. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Tevilat Arvit, the prayer of Arvit. Rabban Gamliel Omer Chova. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer Reshut. Rabban Gamliel says it's obligatory. One must pray Arvit no matter what. Rabbi Yehoshua, which means in that situation where someone comes and says, "Hey, there's someone who's sick. Now is the only time to go visit them," and you're saying, "If I don't pray Arvit now, I'm going to miss it." Don't go to the other mitzvah. Pray Arvit. Right? If you say it's required, you have to pray Arvit. By going to do another mitzvah, I'm going to lose out on this. I have to pray Arvit. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer Reshut. Rabbi Yehoshua is lenient and says the tefillah of Arvit is actually Reshut. Amar Abaye. Abaye tells us halacha kedivrei Omer Chova. Abaye says the halacha is like Rabban Gamliel that it's required. Rava Amar halacha kedivrei Omer Reshut. And Rava holds like the one that says it's optional. That like Rabbi Yehoshua. Who was Rabban Gamliel? He was the Nasi. Okay, how do you know he was a Nasi?
His name is Rabban.
His name is Rabban. Very good. The title of Rabban belongs to the Nasi. What is the Nasi? This is very important for the upcoming story. Very good. The head of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court, had 71 members. The head of that, the functions and duties of the court, the head is called an Av Bet Din. Okay? But that's normally the number 2 position. The number 1 position is the Nasi. He's the president. The president also has like political roles as well as judicial roles in the Sanhedrin. The number 1 position of the Sanhedrin is the Nasi. Number 2 is the Av Bet Din. But there are certain functions of the courts that really belongs to the Av Bet Din, and there are certain political things that belong to the Nasi. Okay, what is something that belongs to the Nasi? The announcing of Rosh Chodesh, Mikudash. That's a function, a job of the Nasi, for example. Okay, now here's what happened. Where is the Sanhedrin? Anyone know where it's situated?
Time period.
Yerushalayim. What time period? Okay, Yerushalayim is correct until a certain point. Until what point?
The second temple got destroyed and moved to Yavne.
Yavne, very good. That's correct. When the second Beit Midrash was destroyed, during that time, the Nasi of the time, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, this had a request from Vespasian, a Roman general, that they were going to kill. They were destroying the Beit Midrash. They were killing all of the Jews. He had a few requests. He was the Nasi of the time. Remember, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the Nasi, and he was in a political position. And even with the enemy, he had a relationship. And he said, "Give me a few requests." One of the requests that he had is, "Ten li Yavne v'chachamea," allow me to set up a yeshiva and a court in another city. You want to destroy Jerusalem? Fine, but let us go. Let us go and set up a court there. It's a whole long story in Masechet Gittin. But they moved the Sanhedrin from Yerushalayim to Yavne. This is after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. What was the morale of the people after the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed? Depressed, down. What was their view in their eyes of this court?
It's secondary.
It's secondary. It's not a real thing. It's like, look, we're in shambles, and now we have something But is this the real thing? This is not the real
They
thing.
didn't take it serious.
They didn't necessarily take it seriously. Yeah, it was chachamim. Yeah, they set it up, but it's like, this is not the real thing. Everyone knows it's not the real thing. Okay, so now what happens? What happens is, because after Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, or when he was passing away, you know what? I want to read something to you. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but this is important. Go to footnote number 20 on 27B3. It's a very, very, very long footnote. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read from you. Let's say I said some of this background now. Look at the very, very bottom of 27B3 on the first column. It says the nation in that footnote. The nation at this time was still reeling from the blow dealt it by the loss of the temple. This was in addition to the enormous loss of life the war with Rome had brought about. Over 1 million Jews perished in the siege of Jerusalem alone, and many thousands have been taken captive and sold into slavery. Indeed, the next paragraph, the first few years of Yazdaneh was almost totally devoted to offering succor to the bleeding nation. I don't know what that word is, sorry. But they're just dealing with all of the destruction that they're in. Only later, when the situation had stabilized somewhat, did the Mesivta, which was comprised of 72 chief sages, in addition to the others of immense, though less stature, began devoting a considerable part of its efforts to its primary function, the Torah. After the destruction of Beit Midrash, when this new court was set up, they were just dealing with cleanup. After a while, now they're like, okay, let's start getting into halachic discussions and start going through everything that was forgotten. Among other matters, this included resolving issues of uncertainty in the oral transmitted Mishnah, deciding on matters that had been in a dispute between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, and in general, clarifying details which the upheavals of the nation had obscured. Over all this and more, the Nasi presided. It has always been important, even the pre-destruction days, for the Nasi to exercise his authority. Now, however, in the aftermath of the greatest of evil the nation had ever experienced, it was strongly held opinion of Rabban Gamliel, who was the Nasi, that the prestige of the Nasi's office needed to be protected even more in order to unify the people, which means Rabban Gamliel was almost paranoid that this office of Nasi, everyone is saying this Sanhedrin is not real, everyone's saying this, no, this is real, and he went to lengths to make sure that everyone knew this is real. Against this backdrop, the story that follows, which transpired about 14 years after the destruction, will be better understood. Here we are, 14 years after the destruction of the temple. I did want to just mention that at that time, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was the head, was the Nasi, and Rabbi Yehoshua was the Av Beit Din. Right? Does it say that? I believe Rabbi Yehoshua was the Av Beit Din. And that character of Rabbi Yehoshua is going to exist.
Identical to after Shoah. Tons of Jews leaving Germany, they come to America, they've lost half of their families, they have
Yeah.
nobody. There's a Moshe Feinstein is like one of the few
Yeah,
rabbis here.
yeah. The nation was dealing with destruction. We got the background. Who is the Nasi? Rabban Gamliel. Who is the Av Beit Din? Rabbi Yehoshua. In many ways, Rabbi Yehoshua was a greater Talmid Chacham. In many ways, they were like colleagues. In many ways, Rabbi Yehoshua was
Decided.
yeah. At the time before Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, actually, the previous Nasi was Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. He was one of the 10 martyrs. So Rabban Gamliel's father was one of the 10 martyrs. He was the Nasi, and he died. After he died, it was Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. He got them over. Rabbi Yehoshua was the Av Beit Din, and then after Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, actually, it should say this. At the time, okay, here.
Rabbi Nasi was when did he have to do that?
Rabbi Yochanan Nasi is the grandson of Rabban Gamliel. I'll show a timeline in a moment. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away at the age of 120, his position as Av Beit Din was filled by Rabbi Yehoshua, and the older colleague of Rabban Gamliel. So what happened was, when Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who got them into Yavne, passed away, Rabbi Yehoshua filled the position of Av Beit Din, and Rabban Gamliel eventually took the position of Nasi, filling the position of his father who was killed. Okay? We got the characters. Nasi, Rabban Gamliel. Av Beit Din, Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua is an older colleague. In many ways, he's wiser. They have a machloket, Tefillat, Arvit, Reshut, or Chova. What does Rabban Gamliel say? Chova. Arvit is obligatory. Rabbi Yehoshua says Arvit is reshut.
Optional.
Rabbi Yehoshua says reshut. This seems like a non-consequential discussion for Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua, but it's going to start a major issue. Let's go ahead and see it, okay? Here we go. Share screen. Tana Rabbanan, guys, stick with me. We're going to probably for the next half hour go straight. I'm not really going to take questions. We're going to go through this story. We're going to have some fun. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. There was a student. Sheba lefnei Rabbi Yehoshua. He came to Rabbi Yehoshua. Came to number 2. Amar lo tiflat arvit reshut chova. He said, is arvit optional or mandatory? Amar le reshut. Rabbi Yehoshua, we know his position. His position is it's optional. So what did he do after he asked number 2 and that person said, and the Av Beit Din says it's okay, it's reshut? He goes and he asks number 1. Oof. Already in a position causing some strife. Mr. Akimian, we're going to learn about a tremendous story, amazing story. You just made it for the beginning. A little bit of Shalom Bayit issues here. So what happened? These two rabbis, Nasi and Av Beit Din, a student goes and asks the Av Beit Din, number 2, and says, is Arvit reshut or chova? Is Arvit mandatory or optional? So Av Beit Din says it's optional. Then he goes and he asks number 1. And he says, is Tivlat Arvit reshut or chova? And guess what he says? He says chova. He says it's mandatory. Amar lo Tivlat Arvit reshut or chova? Amar lo chova. So Rabban Gamliel, the Nasi, says it's obligatory. Amar lo. So what does the student answer? Hello, Rabbi Yehoshua, Amar li reshut? Oh no, but Rabbi Yehoshua told me it's optional. Why are you telling me it's chova? Vo Amar lo. He said, oh really? Okay. Hamten ad sheikanesu ba'alei trisin leBeit Midrash. Let's wait for all of the shield bearers, the whole army. Let's wait for the army to gather. I want all of the rabbis to come in. Keep in mind, they knew that they had a dispute. Rabban Gamliel's opinion was Arvit is required. Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is that Arvit is not required. It's optional. Okay? Now, when someone is coming and asking an halachic question from Rabbi Yehoshua, what Rabban Gamliel expects is that he defers to me for the halachic question, because that's the authority of the court. I'm the Nasi. Remember, people are not really viewing this court is not the same court as the one of Yerushalayim. This is 14 years after the Beit Midrash. He wants to show that I have the authority. So now, the vice is going to go say something against me. Okay, let's wait until everyone comes in. All of the students come in, all of the rock stars. These are all stars. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, all of the rabbis are coming in. After they come in, all of the students came to shiur. Amad hashoel v'sha'al. He signals to the student who asked the question. He says, "Get up, ask your question." Okay, this one he's just having fun. Tefillat Arvit reshut chova. Is Arvit required or is it optional? So Amar lo Rabban Gamliel, the Nasi says, chova, it's required. Pretty simple. Crickets. Everything is fine. Amar lahem Rabban Gamliel techachamim. So now Rabban Gamliel looks around the entire room and he says, Klum yesh adam shecholek b'devar zeh. Does anyone disagree? And guess what he does? He looks at Rabbi Yehoshua and stares him in the eye. Does anyone disagree with this? Amar le Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua says, no one disagrees. No dissension here. Next question. Amar lo. He says, v'halo mishimcha amru li reshut. They quoted you saying that you said it's optional.
Put him on the spot.
Oof. Yeah. Now Rabbi Yehoshua is in this position. He wasn't questioning his authority. Rabbi Yehoshua wasn't even questioning Rabban Gamliel's authority. An individual asked him a question, he gave that individual an answer. That individual went and asked Rabban Gamliel, got a different answer, told on Rabbi Yehoshua. Now Rabbi Yehoshua goes publicly and says, anyone disagree? And he says, no. And he says, I know you disagree. Oof. So what is Rabbi Yehoshua going to say? Amar le Rabbi Yehoshua. First Rabban Gamliel says, Amar le Yehoshua. Doesn't call him Rabbi Yehoshua. He says, Yehoshua, amod al raglecha v'ya'idu b'cha. Stand up. I want to hear what everyone has to say about this. I want they will testify against you. I want the student who told me that he heard you say that's reshut. I want him to say that, yes, I heard him to say it. Stand up. It's humiliating. Remember, this Rabbi Yehoshua was older than he was. He was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. And actually, what we're seeing is the halacha is actually like him. But Rabban Gamliel wasn't doing this for his own personal honor. Why was Rabban Gamliel doing this? For the sake and the integrity of the court, of the Sanhedrin. So he wanted to protect the court and says, you can't disagree with the head of the court, with the Nasi. Amad Rabbi Yehoshua raglav ve'amar. So Rabbi Yehoshua stands up and he's going to own it. Ilmale ani chai v'hu met. if I were alive and this student were dead, yachol achai la'achish et hamet, then the one who's living can deny the one who's dead. I could say, no, I never said that. But now that I'm alive and this student is alive, he's standing right in front of us, I can't deny it. So he's basically saying, like, you caught me. Rabban Gamliel Yoshev v'doresh. So Rabban Gamliel continued the shiur, but you know what he did? He made Rabbi Yehoshua stand. Rabbi Yehoshua omed al raglav. Rabbi Yehoshua was standing this entire time. Imagine I had a shiur and I say, Gabriel, stand up, right there, go in the corner, stand in the corner, face the wall. Like, this is what they do. This is what they do for kids. It's not respect. This is the Arvit din. And what? It's a halachic dispute. He wasn't trying to question you. You do stick him in the corner, stand up. So what happened? The people of the shiur said, this is not okay. We don't accept this. You're disrespecting him. They stood up for him. What did they do? The people started to complain. And they told the turgaman. Turgaman means a translator, but actually what it used to be is that, some people have a very loud voice. For example, Rama. Okay? You have someone that's going to give a shiur. He might be older, and they have a big yeshiva. They didn't have microphones, so how can he make sure that everyone hears? They have someone with a very loud voice right next to him. So he says a line, and this person, Chutzpit HaTurgaman, says the line out loud. Very nice, powerful voice. Okay, we're going to call him a Rama Turgaman. They have a very nice voice so that everyone could hear. So what do the people do is when they told Chutzpit HaTurgaman, stop. They pulled the plug out of the speakers. They pulled it out. Amod, they told him Amod ve'amad. He stopped. Amri, and they said, Ad kama nitzareh v'nezil. How long are we going to watch while Rabban Gamliel is humiliating and hurting Rabbi Yehoshua? Berachot 27B-28A. Last year on Rosh Hashanah, he bothered him. What happened in Rosh Hashanah last year? Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chaf Hei Amud Aleph. Daf Chaf Hei. What does it tell us? It tells us there was a machloket between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua of when is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. And what happened was, Rabbi Yehoshua said Rosh Chodesh is a day later. He felt that the previous month was an extra day. And because of that, the implication was that Yom Kippur would fall out on a different day. So Rabban Gamliel, to protect the integrity of the position and the court, he made Rabbi Yehoshua, on the day that he calculated would be Yom Kippur, to come in front of everyone, to bring his money, to bring his backpack, to make sure to break Yom Kippur, to smoke his cigarette, I don't know if he smoked, but to do things publicly, to start a barbecue. He was serving lunch that day. Why? Because he wanted to show everyone that what I say is correct, because this Sanhedrin is valid, even though we're no longer in Yerushalayim, we're in Yavne, but this is humiliating. He thinks today is Yom Kippur. So let him, okay, so the rule is that it's not, but why are you making him do this? So the way the story continued is that Rabbi Yehoshua got very depressed until Rabbi Akiva went to him and calmed him down and said, look, whatever the court says, that's the law, you don't need to worry about it. And he says, okay, Akiva nechamtani, you made me happy. Okay, I accept. But Rabbi Yehoshua was humiliated. It was very humiliating. Imagine I tell someone on a day that you think is Yom Kippur, come in front of everyone, and you're gonna serve them cotton candy and start doing that. Like, why are you making it humiliating? So they said he did this last year. Okay, it happened another time. The second time it happened was with a rule of a bechor. I just say it very quickly. There is a rule that a bechor belongs to the Kohen. And the Kohen, an animal has a Bechor sheep. They give this sheep to the Kohen. The Kohen has to bring it as a korban and give parts of it as a sacrifice. Okay, that's a law of a Bechor. Unless it develops a blemish on its own. Okay, now what happens if a Kohen himself, he has a sheep and it develops a blemish on its own? It needs to get inspected. If it's a real blemish, the Kohen can eat the whole thing by himself. If it's not a real blemish, then he has to give it as a korban. So here's the situation. You had a Kohen who was a Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Tzadok. And in the situation where it was his sheep, Rabban Gamliel said, you Kohen, you cannot be the one to inspect it. You're biased. You can't be the one to inspect the sheep to determine if this blemish is a real blemish or not. You have to give it to someone else. Rabbi Yehoshua says it's Rabbi Tzadok. What do you think he's going to lie about this? He's allowed. So Rabbi Yehoshua says Rabbi Sadok himself can make the rule. Rabban Gamliel said, no, you have to give it to someone else. And since they dissented, once again, Rabban Gamliel made him stand up. He made him stand up just like what he's doing at this time, made him stand up and hurt and pained him and humiliated him. Hachanami Sareh, and it's happening today a third time. They're saying 3 times, 3 strikes, you're out. How many times are you going to humiliate him? You made him come with his money belt on his day of Yom Kippur. You humiliated him when we had the discussion about Rabbi Sadok inspecting an animal. Non-consequential. Like, why are you bothering him? And now here we're talking about whether Arvit you're required to or not, and you're humiliating him in front of everyone. You make him stand up. You continue with the shiur. Hachanami Sareh, you're bothering him. Ta v'na bere. They said, we need to get rid of Rabban Gamliel. They're deciding that it's time to fire the rabbi. Wow. Yeah, it's more than a revolution. They see that this rabbi, sometimes you have a star player on your team, that he's amazing, he's an all-star, he's the best, but no, he just can't get along with people, and he just keeps getting in fight. Then all of a sudden, the next morning he finds out he's going to the Lakers. They just traded him. This guy, he thinks that he's with Denver his whole life, and then move. Why? There's lehavdil. Obviously, I'm saying it as a joke. But they said that's enough. We can't have Rabban Gamliel here anymore. Okay, so kick out the Nasi. Man no kimle. So who are you going to replace him with? They don't accept, by the way, just for whoever's involved, they don't accept in having no rabbi. They didn't accept this. They just have 4 years of rotation of no rabbis. No, they don't accept that. They said if you want to kick out the rabbi, you need to have the replacement lined up. Man no kimle. So who should we do? Nokmele Rabbi Yehoshua. They said, okay, let's put Rabbi Yehoshua. He's the real Talmid Chacham here. He's the second. They said, no, Bal Ma'asehu. He's part of this story. You can't go give it to him. Why? 2 reasons. Either that's adding insult to injury to Rabban Gamliel. Like, we're not trying to humiliate Rabban Gamliel now by making him lose the position and the one that he got in the disagreement with promoting him. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to show that the way you're acting Rabban Gamliel is not, we don't accept it. But not to put Rabbi Yehoshua in his place. So one reason why they say don't put Rabbi Yehoshua is either because it's going to hurt Rabban Gamliel too much. Another approach it could be is that everyone's going to think Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Yehoshua was part of this. Rabbi Yehoshua made a whole plot. He did this to make him look like a fool, and he went and he argued. So this way he knew he was going to lose his temper. It was a whole master plan. That you can't. It's too biased. No, people are not going to accept Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua is biased. We can't pick Rabbi Yehoshua. Okay, so Nokmele Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva was a Gadol Hador. Let's put him. What was the issue? Dilma Anishle. Maybe he's going to get punished. Why is he going to get punished? Because Rabban Gamliel had Zechut Avot. Rabban Gamliel was from the lineage of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel from Nisi'im, the son of Rabban Gamliel, the son of Hillel HaZaken, who came from David HaMelech. They were from the reign of Melachim. And if Rabban Gamliel is upset, and he's upset because of Rabbi Akiva's in that place, even if it's coming from a place of jealousy and he cries about it, Rabbi Akiva's in trouble. You know why? The late le zechut avot, because Rabbi Akiva was a ben ger. His father was a convert, according to the Rambam, or according to others. He was from a family of converts. You're not going to set up Rabban Gamliel, who is from a family of David HaMelech, against a convert. Rabbi Akiva doesn't have zechut avot. And they were scared. It's basically, history repeats itself. You're sending a rabbi into, what's it called? A dungeon, a lion's den. And you're sending him now, he's going to have a machloket with you can't put him. He's not in the right position. He doesn't have the right backing. Okay, so we can't do Rabbi Akiva. Who should we do? Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. What about Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah? You know what he has on his resume? Dehu chacham, he's very smart, he's wise. Dehu ashir, he's mad rich. Dehu asiri le'ezra, and he's 10th generation from Ezra Kohen, Ezra Sofer. So why does that matter? Hu chacham, the fact that he's wise, di makshile mefarik le. If people ask him the questions, he's going to know the answers. It makes sense. He's good. He's qualified. Vehu ashir, and he's very wealthy. Why is that important? Because if he has to pay bribes and if he has to do give sort of things to protect us as a nation, he will. Remember, the Nasi is a political position. He needs to rub the right shoulders. Having money in that position is important. So he's got the smarts. He's got the money. Vehu asiri le'ezra, and he's 10th generation from Ezra Sofer. He has zechut avot. This is something Rabbi Akiva Zanav, who was a convert, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, has it. So he's the right one. So this way, if Rabban Gamliel, the lomatzi anishle, Rabban Gamliel can't punish him. It's not really punishing him, but it's like if he prays to hurt him, he won't get punished. He has zechut avot. Zechut avot is very important. Atu ve'amru le. They went to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. By the way, how old is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? 18 years old. They have some nice young rookie rabbi in the crowd, and they go to the rookie rabbi, 18 years old. They say, hey, you want the number one position of the entire Sanhedrin? They came and they offered him, this is like a dream come true. Imagine, we're going to sign you a $200 million 8-year contract, Nasi of the Sanhedrin, just like that.
Why would he deserve that? Was it a joke?
We just said it. What do you mean, why do we deserve it? He's Chacham, he's Ashir, and he has Zechut Avot. He's the great-grandchild of Ezra. So who said? Hold on. Let the question go. So, Atu ve'amru le, nicha le lamar le'eve resh mitifta. You accept to be the head of the yeshiva, to be the nasi. Amar le'o shalom bait, Mr. Akimian. Ready? They offered him a job. You know what he says? Ezil ve'emlich be'inshei beiti. I have to go ask my wife. You gave me a job offer. What's his answer? He doesn't say yes. He says, I have to go speak with my family. Azal ve'imlich b'debitu. So he goes and he asks his wife, Shalom bait, honey, I got a new job offer. Okay? By the way, the commentators pick up on this, is that if a man is going to have an opportunity to have a financial, a career decision, but it's going to impact the amount of time he spends at home with his wife, he needs to get reshut from her. He needs to get permission. Because they're married under certain pretenses. Actually, there's halachot about this. That when a man and a woman are getting married, there's certain requirements that he has with how much time he's going to spend with her. And now, if a person is taking a different job and he won't be spending as much time with her, he has to have a discussion. He can't just go do it on his own. He can't just go sign the contract and say, by the way.
You have to get a permission.
You have to get a permission. So that's what he does. He goes and he asks his wife. He goes and he asks his wife, she said to him, we're now turning the page. What do you think she said? We're turning to Daf Kavchet Amud Aleph. They're going to get rid of you. No, don't take this. Are you kidding me? They're getting rid of him. They're firing him. And he's the Nasi. He's been in this position forever. His father was the Nasi. His grandfather was the Nasi. His great-grandfather was the Nasi. Great-great-grandfather was the Nasi. And now you think you 18-year-old, you're going to come stick your head in. Tomorrow they're going to get rid of you. Let them deal with their fight on their own. They don't get involved with this. Stay out of it. Very smart advice from his wife. But he says another response. He says, I've been dreaming of this. Amarla, he says, Lishtamash inish yoma chada bekasar demokra. Let a person use a crystal glass even once, ulamachar litvar, and let it break tomorrow. Which means if someone gives you a crystal glass and you say, if I drink from this, it might break. So what's better? Put it down, never drink from it? Then what's the point? He says, at least let me use it once. Even if I have this position for a short period of time, at least I can become the Nasi. And if it breaks, it breaks. But it's better to have lost. What is it? It's better to have had and lost than never to have had at all. Let me take it. Okay, so he convinces his wife. Fine. But there's one problem. Rama's problem. Amra le, leit lecha chivarata. You don't have any white hair. You're a baby. No one's going to accept what you say. You look like a little baby. You're 18 years old. You barely even have any, your facial hair didn't even come in yet. So, Hahu Yoma, the Gemara tells us, on that day, Bar Tamni Sreis Shana Have, he was 18 years old, Itrachish Le Nisa, and there was a miracle, V'ihadure Tamni Sare Dare Chivarata, and he grew 18 white streaks of hair in his beard. So what was the issue? The issue was he looks too young. Don't worry, there was a miracle that he looked old. The Rambam, by the way, Rambam doesn't like bringing miracles into stories, and this is a valid story. So the Rambam explains this as Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, yes, he was 18 years old, but he really exerted so much energy studying Torah that he aged. It actually put a strain on his body. And he actually had white hair. And more than that, deeper level, the miracle was that people accepted him. People saw that, he's 18 years old, but he's wise above his years. And sometimes there's someone that's very young that he's accepted. And that's a miracle. That's a miracle, because really following the order of nature, if you have someone that's been in the position and he's been there for so long, to switch for some rookie is not the smartest thing. But when you have someone that's so wise, so smart, from such an important family, knew so much Torah, and really exerted so much energy in Torah, people saw it. So that there were some physical attributes to it, and there was also a miracle that people accepted him. So what happened? He grew this beard. And now we're tying it back to a Mishnah at the end of the first parak, where he says, Hainu T'Ka'amar Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. That's what Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says about himself. Harei ani kiven shivim shana. I am like 70 years old, but he doesn't say I am 70 years old. Velo ben shivim shana. He doesn't say I am 70 years old. Do you guys know that story? This was a Gemara. We say it in the first parak. We also say it in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. It says, Harei ani kiven shivim shana velo zachiti sh'te'amer yitzem b'shem b'leilot. I am like 70 years old, and all of the time that I tried to bring a proof that we're required to do Yetziat Mitzrayim, which means the last paragraph of Shema. I tried to prove that you have to do that at nighttime. I wasn't successful. Until Ben Zoma came and he found me a proof. And now finally, something that I've been fighting for so many years, just like that, he came and he gave me a proof. But he's saying, I'm like 70 years old. What do you mean? Are you 70 years old or not? So now they're saying it's like, no, he wasn't 70 years old. But he was accepted like a 70-year-old. And that's why he said like that. Meaning, I'm accepted. I'm the Nasi. And I couldn't prove it until Rabban Zoma came and he proved it. Okay, let's continue with the story. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah comes in. What do you do if you're a new CEO of a company? Shake things up. That's it. You come in, you have to shake it. Even if there's no reason to shake it, you got to shake it. Why? You got to make your mark. There's a new boss in town. What's the first thing he does? Tana oto hayom. On that day, silku l'shomer hapetach. He removed the guard at the front of the door. There was a guard that they used to lock the door, and he came and he said to the guard, buddy, you're out of here. Get out. Why? Everyone's allowed in. It used to be when Rabban Gamliel was the head of the Nasi, he wouldn't let everyone into the admissions process to get into the yeshiva was impossible. The admissions was very hard. Some yeshivas continue this practice today, unless you sign some nice checks. The admissions was impossible to get in. It was very hard to get in. Kem Rabbi Elazar, what did he say? Universal yeshiva education. Doors open. Whoever wants to come in, comes in. Kick the guard out. Admissions, everyone's in. Wow. Okay. Now, Rabban Gamliel wasn't doing it based on money, chas v'shalom. He was doing it based on, we're going to see right now, based on whether a student is tocho kivaro, which means a genuinely good student, which means if they're coming to the yeshiva to just mess around and have fun and just hang out, not for you. You want to come here, you got to be a serious student. You want to come to this yeshiva, serious. If you're not serious, you're not allowed in. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says, even if you're not serious, if you want to come, please come. I have poppers for you. Come, give them poppers. You don't have to. Just come poppers. Is here. Just come for 3 minutes. Just put on your tefillin and go. Yeah, exactly. Just come. You Jewish? Blow the shofar. You're Jewish. You're Jewish. Come in. Okay, so yeah, he's like, this is the one he just said, you're Jewish, come in. This is exactly it. Silku l'shomer hapetach. He kicked the guard out. And he allowed everyone in. Rabban Gamliel because Rabban Gamliel would say, Kol tamid she'en tocho kivaro. Any student who is inside is not like his outside, or opposite. That his inside is not the same as his outside, which means he might dress a certain way and he might look a certain way and he might shake a certain way. But if on the inside he's not real, I don't let him in. Lo yikanes Beit Midrash, not allowed in. The commentators ask, how do the guards know what the guy is on the inside or not? So it's not that they would actually. They would say this before you would come in. They would say, look, this is serious here. No messing around. You know, you're not going to Ben Yehuda. All of a sudden, Thursday nights, you're going to get no shawarma for you. You're going to be eating like just bread and for 5 seconds, and then you continue learning. You know, all of a sudden, you tell some yeshiva student that he's not allowed to go to the kotel because he has to be in Yavne learning yeshiva his whole life. Not really the kotel, but you can't go hang out and no playing football. I'm not interested in this. This yeshiva is too fanatic for me. So what happened is, now comes, guys, by the way, like I'm trying to say it in a fun way. Chas v'shalom. I'm not, the yeshiva. Rabban Gamliel wanted serious, genuine, strong students. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah changed the admissions process, got rid of the guard. What happened? Hahu yoma, on that day, itosfu kama safsalei, they had to add benches. They called the janitors and they said, bring more chairs, bring more chairs. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, pligi ba Abba Yosef ben Dostai Rabbanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, it's a machloket, how many benches were added on that day? Chad Omar itosfu arba me'as safsalei, 400 benches. V'echad amar sheva me'at safsalei, 700 benches. How many people can you fit on a bench? At least 2? Maybe, okay, but let's say 4. Let's say at least 2. We're talking about thousands of students. Thousands of students that weren't allowed into the yeshiva. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah comes in, gets rid of the guard, sends a WhatsApp message, poppers. Thousands of students come in. Havakachasha da'ate de Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel became very, very, very depressed. Because now he's realizing the first day that I'm out, attendance went up 5-fold. Like, whoa, what have I been doing? Amar, Dilma chas v'shalom, manati Torah Yisrael. Maybe I've been preventing Torah study from Am Yisrael. There were so many students that wanted to come. He felt very bad. Achzuleh bechelmeh. He had a dream that night. Chatzveh chivare de malyan kitma. He had a dream of beautiful white vases that were filled with ash. As if to say, don't worry, it's just a show. Yes, a lot of beautiful white vases came in, but if you look inside, there's nothing in there. Don't feel so bad. They got numbers, but the numbers are not genuine. They're only coming for the poppers, right? Belohi, the Gemara says, but that's not true. From Shemaim, they sent him a dream for him to feel calm, but that's not the right approach. The Gemara is telling us the right approach was the approach of Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. You bring Talmidei Chachamim, people who want to learn Torah, you bring them in. You don't check them at the door to ask them how good of a person are you. Everyone has their sins. Bring them in. Make them better people. Tana, on the Braita tells us, Eduyot bo bayom nishnet. The entire Masechet Eduyot was taught on that day. What is Masechet Eduyot? We spoke about this last daf. It's exactly testimonies. What happened was on this day, when all of a sudden the attendance of the Sanhedrin, of the yeshiva, grew by over 700 benches, or however many that is. They had so many Talmidei Chachamim. They haven't been together since 15 years ago, since Yerushalayim. All of the rabbis are now in Yavne. All of the Talmidei Chachamim are coming into the room. Attendance went up. On that day, they dealt with every open halachic question that they had. And everyone who had an answer came forward and said, I testify that I saw my rabbi do this. I testify that I saw my rabbi do this. So then this is the ediyot, the testimonies. When were these testimonies made? On that day that Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah got rid of the guard, the bouncer at the door. The ediyot bo bayom nishlet, it was taught on that day. B'chol heicha da'amrina bo bayom. And any time in Mishnayot, it ever says the phrase of bo bayom, on that very day, hahu yom ha'ava, it's talking about this day. I believe in Masechet Chagiga, somewhere it says, Bo Bayom, on that day this happened. Or not in Masechet Chagiga, Masechet Sotah. It says, Bo Bayom. In Mishnah it says, on that day this is what happened. On that day this happened. Which day is that day? The day that Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah got appointed as Nasi and opened up the doors. V'lo hayta halacha shehayta tiluya b'Beit Midrash shelo pershua. There was no open-ended question by the end of the day. There was no question left unanswered by the end of the day. And guess what? There was so much Torah discussed on that day. Rabban Gamliel, even Rabban Gamliel himself, lo mana atzmo mi Beit Midrash. He couldn't stay out of the Beit Midrash himself. He was there. They demoted him from the Nasi. They promoted Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. Everyone is in, and Rabban Gamliel is saying, like, I'm not leaving. I need to hear this Torah also. So he stayed. He wasn't the Nasi, but he stayed. So how do we know? Because there was a discussion that happened on that day, and there was another machlokah between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua. Look, it's not. We learned in the Mishnah. Bo bayom, on that day, this is the Mishnah, I believe in Masechet Yadayim. Bo bayom, on that day, ba Yehuda ger Amoni lifnehem. There was a ger, a convert. Yehuda was his name. He came into the courts. Remember, he couldn't get in beforehand. Now he comes in, and he says, Beit Midrash, he comes to Beit Midrash, and he says, I have a question. Amar lahem, and he says to them, Ma ani lavo bakahal. Am I allowed to marry a Jewish girl? Remember, the Torah tells us that an Ammoni, someone who is from the family of Ammon, is not allowed to if they convert, they can, and Moab, Ammon and Moab, if they convert, they are not allowed to marry a Jew. They can convert, but they're not allowed to marry a Jew. So he comes to Yehuda ger Ammoni, he says, I converted, can I marry a Jew? The answer is pretty simple. It says in the Torah, no. Right? So Amar lo Rabban Gamliel says, Asura talavo bakahal. Rabban Gamliel, the ex-Nasi, gives an answer. He says, no, you're not allowed to. You're from Ammon. Amar lo Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua says, Mutar lo lavo bakal. Once again, Rabbi Yehoshua says, no, he's allowed to. Okay, so the two of them, after the situation, they're still having a discussion. This is why the Gemara says, you know that even Rabban Gamliel like couldn't leave this day. Amar lo Rabban Gamliel, so Rabban Gamliel says, "V'halo kvar ne'emar lo yavo Amoni u'Moavi bikal Adonai." What do you mean? It says it in the Torah. Amoni is not allowed to marry a Jew. Amar lo Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua says, "V'chi Amon u'Moav b'mkoman hen yoshvin." Do you actually think that people from Ammon and Moab are actually from those countries? All of the origins and everything is all mixed up. Kabar ala Sancheriv u'melech Ashur u'bilbel et kol ha'umot. Sancheriv, who was the king of Ashur, came, and when Ashur took over, they moved people around. It was very common for kings that new emperors would come in and they would take over an area. They would resettle.
Yosef did in Egypt.
Yosef did the same thing in Egypt. Exactly. They moved people around. Why? Because it shows that like everyone here is in a new place. I'm in charge. So Sancheriv came and moved. So now this Yehuda coming from Ammon, he's not actually from Ammon. He was coming from some other nation that Sancheriv moved there. Right? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, by Sancheriv va'asir gevulot amim. He says, Sancheriv, when he came and he said, I am going to remove all boundaries. Va'atudotehem soseti ve'orid kabir yoshvim. I removed the bounds of peoples. I've robbed their treasures, and I brought down as one mighty the inhabitants. I've mixed everything up. I took all of their money. So now he says, so someone comes from Ammon. You don't know that he's from Ammon. Sancheriv already mixed everything up. So you have to assume that he's coming from a nation. V'chol de parish miruba de parish. And whenever you're not sure where something is coming from, you assume it came from the majority. The majority of the world is not Ammon. So he's coming and he's saying, I'm from Ammon. You're not from Ammon. Yeah, maybe you were born there. But that's not the same Ammon as the Ammon of the Torah. Sancheriv already mixed everything up. So where are you from? I don't know where you're from, but I know that chances are you're not from Ammon. So you're not from Ammon. You can marry a Jew. Whoa. Amar lo Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel said, hold on a second. V'lo kvar ne'emar. But doesn't it say by Yirmiyahu, V'acharei chen ashiv et shevut b'nei Ammon ne'um Adonai u'chvar shavu. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu that says, don't worry, Ammon is going to go back to its original land. So they went back. Rabbi Yehoshua says, you want to quote me a pasuk about going back? Do you know where we are? We're in Yavne. Do we have the Beit Midrash? Are we in Yerushalayim? Amar lo Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua says, "V'halo kvar ne'emar." Doesn't it also say, "V'shavti et shevut ami Yisrael"? I'm going to return Yisrael to their spot. V'adayin lo shavnu. We're in Yavne. There's no Beit Midrash. We're not in Yerushalayim. What are you talking about? Miyad hitiru lavo bakal. So the court decided mutar. Whoa! Again, what happened on this day? Rabban Gamliel, who was the Nasi, who had started off by someone asking Rabbi Yehoshua a question. Rabban Gamliel didn't like that he gave a different answer. He humiliated him by standing. They got rid of him, brought a new leader in, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. He changed the policy, new people coming in. They had an halachic discussion, someone who never had access to hear. Rabbi Yehoshua argues with him, and the court rules like Rabbi Yehoshua. And Rabban Gamliel sees this and he's humbled. He realizes that, like, look, I stepped aside, more people are coming to study Torah. I'm having a discussion and other people are deciding, and they're deciding not like me. And now all of a sudden he's realizing, I made a mistake. Amar Rabban Gamliel, Rabban Gamliel says, now that I see that Rabbi Yehoshua was right about this, maybe he was right about the other ones also. Maybe he's right about Arvit, maybe he's right about Rosh Hashanah, maybe he's right about the Bechor of the Kohen. So Ezev Afayesel Rabbi Yehoshua, he says, I need to go ask Rabbi Yehoshua for Mechila. Perfect in time for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I need to go ask him for permission, for forgiveness. So what does he do? He goes to Rabbi Yeshua's house. This is afterwards, after they left the yeshiva. He goes to his house, knocks on the door, comes with a bouquet of flowers. Chazinu l'ashiyata de beite de meshachran. And what does he do? He sees Rabbi Yeshua's house. All of the walls are black. It has a very strong smell of coal. Amalei, he says, he says, from the walls of your house, I could tell you're a blacksmith. I didn't know you're a blacksmith. And he says, boy, you've been in this position for how many years? You don't even know what I do for a living? Amar lo, he says to him, Oy lo lador sha'ata parnaso. I feel bad for a generation that you're the leader. You don't know what Talmidei Chachamim have to do. Do you know, by the way, while you're busting my chops when I'm doing all of this, I have a side job. I'm a blacksmith. I'm making these things. Why? Because I'm not rich. because I have to make a living for myself. And here you are sitting on your throne from the son of David HaMelech. You have no idea what people have to do. You have no idea what we're involved with. You could see Rabbi Yehoshua was a little bit upset, right? You could see that, and he was validated by by the rabbis, and then he was validated by them holding like Rabbi Yehoshua. So Rabban Gamliel comes in, and as he wants to give him an apology, before he gives an apology, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you're a blacksmith." He's like, "You have no idea what I've been doing. You have no idea what I'm going through." Amar lo, so he says to him, "Ne'eneti lecha, I've insulted you. Mecholi, forgive me." Lo ashkach be, Rabbi Yehoshua doesn't respond. Oof, he doesn't answer. Rabbi Yehoshua was not happy with it. So then he says, "Please, aseh b'shvil kevod Abba, do for my father. Do this for my great-grandfather." It could be he's asking about Hillel HaZaken. Hillel HaZaken was the peacemaker. Could be that he's asking for his great-grandfather David HaMelech. Let me just show you on the screen. By the way, this is a chart put together by Rabbi Eli Stefansky. This is the Rabban Gamliel over here with the green thing. Rabban Gamliel Shel Maaseh B'Gemara. This is the Rabban Gamliel, 14 years after the destruction of the Beit Midrash. His father was Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. He was one of the 10 martyrs that was killed when the Romans were persecuting us during the destruction of the Beit Midrash. His father was Gamliel, but this one was called Rabban Gamliel HaZaken, the elder. Our Rabban Gamliel is known as Rabban Gamliel de Yavne, because he was the one in Yavne. This is Rabban Gamliel HaZaken, the elder. His father was Rabban Shimon, just like this Rabban Shimon. Now this is a Rabban Shimon, but this Rabban Shimon was the son of Hillel HaZaken. And he was 100 years before the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. Hillel HaZaken was the leader, and he was also the great-grandchild of David HaMelech. So Rabban Gamliel comes and says, like, I know I wronged you. Do it for my grandfather. Do it for my father. It could be that he was talking about Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who was a rabbi before him that Rabbi Yehoshua knew, who was killed by the Romans. It could be he meant his actual father. Point is, he said, please, pious. He was appeased, and he accepted his apology. Okay, so now that he accepted his apology, guess what? Let's go get you your job back. Okay? They hugged it out, so let's go make you the Nasi. So like, all right, but how are we going to do it? Amru, they said, Man nezel rabbanan. Who's going to go tell the rabbis? You're going to go tell the rabbis to give your job back? Am I going to go tell the rabbis to get rid of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? This poor Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, his wife told him, don't do this. He lasted a few minutes. Amar lehu ha'u koves. So there happens to be, there was a laundryman there. I don't know what he was doing there. Someone was coming to pick up the dry cleaners or something. There was a laundryman there, and he says, Ana azil, I'll go. Let me do this. I'll go to the courts. Shalach lahu Rabbi Yehoshua lebeit midrash. So Rabbi Yehoshua, through this launderer, went and sent the following message. Rabbi Yehoshua doesn't want to send a message and say, get rid of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and put Rabban Gamliel back in his position. He doesn't want to say it like that. So they're going to speak in code. How does he say it? Man de lavesh mada. Whoever was wearing the royal garb, the clothing, yilbash mada, he's the one that should wear the clothing. Uman de la lavesh mada. And the one that wasn't never wearing that clothing, Yemar le leman de lavesh mada. Can he actually tell the one who was wearing the clothing, Shalach madach v'ana al beshna, take off your clothing so I could wear it? Using in the spirit of the launderer who's coming for clothing, he says, let's give him an analogy with clothing. And he says, the one who's wearing that royal garb should continue wearing the royal garb, and the one that never wore that royal garb shouldn't tell the one who wore the royal garb to take it off and put it on me. Meaning, this whole thing with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is not appropriate. The vision of a royal garb, by the way, is a vision of a Kohen. Kohen wears royal clothing. Also, a king, a Nasi, wears royal clothing. So the Nasi, this is the lineage from David HaMelech, the royal garb of the clothing of the king should stay on you. The royal garb of the clothing of the Kohen should stay on the Kohen. Remember, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Kohen because he was a great-grandchild of Ezra. Ezra was a Kohen. So it's like the uniforms that you're supposed to wear, you could keep on wearing and don't tell the other one to take it off and put it on. Okay, what happened? Rabbi Akiva right now was almost like the supervisory council, right? We have supervisory council where he's not on the board, he's not on the Sanhedrin. He was a candidate to be a Sanhedrin, but Rabbi Akiva was like the peacemaker. So after this, Amar lehu Rabbi Akiva the Rabbanan, so Rabbi Akiva, supervisory council, goes and tells the rabbis, you're getting some messages here. Rabban Gamliel is sending a campaign. He wants his position back. Tiruku Galeh, close the doors. Duloletu avdei Rabban Gamliel utzarur l'Rabbanan. The students of Rabban Gamliel are going to come and they're going to start putting pressure for us to put him back and cause us trouble. Lock the doors. Okay? So now they didn't realize that this message came from Rabbi Yehoshua. They thought maybe students of Rabban Gamliel were trying to get him back. So Amar Rabbi Yehoshua, so Rabbi Yehoshua says, Mutav de'ekum ve'ezil ana lagabayu. Rabbi Yehoshua says, Karachodameh. There's no one else who can tell the courts that I forgive Rabban Gamliel other than me. I gotta go. So Rabbi Yehoshua gets up and goes. Ata tarafa baba. He knocks on the door. Amar lahu. And he says, Mazeh ben mazeh yazeh. The one who sprinkles, which this is talking about like the sprinkling of a para aduma. Who does that? Kohen. So a sprinkler, the son of a sprinkler, should sprinkle. A Kohen, the son of a Kohen, should continue to be a Kohen. Remember, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Kohen. V'she'eno lo mazeh v'lo ben mazeh. And someone who is not a sprinkler, and not the son of a sprinkler, yomar le-mazeh ben mazeh. Would it make sense for him to tell a sprinkler, the son of a sprinkler, me'mecha me me'ara, your water is no good? Ve'efrecha efer mikleh, your ash is just something you get from your oven. It's just burnt ash. No. Just as a non-Kohen has no right to come tell a Kohen, you can't do this anymore. A Kohen can't go to a Nasi and tell him, you can't do this anymore. They're trying to tell Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that this was never appropriate. You should never have accepted this. This is not the right thing. Rabbi Akiva hears this and he's like, whoa, okay. Rabbi Yehoshua, nitpayasta, like, did you forgive him? Did something happen? We did this for you. Like, if you are okay, so we'll put him back. Like, you're coming and saying Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah did something wrong. We did this because you humiliated you. But if you, Rabbi Yehoshua, are okay with this, we'll put him back. He says, I forgave him. Tomorrow morning, let's go and talk to Rabban Gamliel, and we'll bring him back. So Rabbi Akiva was in the position, we'll bring Rabban Gamliel back. Now, what's the open question? If you're going to bring Rabban Gamliel back, what do you got to do? What are you going to do with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? What would you do? Yeah, so you're saying put him to number 2. Okay? There's a yeshiva here.
He's rich, who cares?
He's rich. He could retire early, right? He'd take his severance package. So there's 2 things. There's the function of the courts, but then there's also the function of the yeshiva. You made him the Rosh Yeshiva. You bring him into the new job. He changes some things. All of a sudden, attendance skyrockets. All of a sudden, all of the discussions are answered. And then you're going to come to him tomorrow and say, sorry, you're fired. Well, you can't do that to him. That's not fair to him. He didn't do anything wrong. He actually did a great job. So what are you supposed to do with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? And ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you the concept of a rabbi rotation. The concept of a rabbi rotation was not invented by us. It's not something that I guess we're still doing it, but it was invented in the Gemara at this very point by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva himself did this. They said, Hechi Arvit, what should we do? Nabre, you want to get rid of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? Gemiri, we've learned there's a rule, Ma'alin b'kodesh v'en moridin. You could bring people up for a kedusha, but you don't take them down. You already put him in this position. You can't take it away from him. Okay. Nidrosh mar chadashavta umar chadashavta. So have this rabbi do this Shabbat, and then the next rabbi the next Shabbat. Let them switch off. Every week, each one's going to be the Rosh Yeshiva. Up there, one week he's going to be the main rabbi, then the next week he's going to be the main rabbi. You have a rotation. Ata lekanoye, they say, no, it's not enough. There's going to be, you know what the problem is when you have 2 rabbis and you go back and forth? There's going to be some jealousy. There's going to be like, oh, who's this against that? 2 co-CEOs doesn't work. It's not good. It's not a good setup. So what happens? Ela, by the way, just keep in mind that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is a fraction of Rabban Gamliel's age. He's a young guy. And Rabban Gamliel is coming from a long history of doing this, from a lineage of doing this, having one-on-one. It's not gonna end well. For Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, it's not fair to him. So Ela lidrosh Rabban Gamliel tlata shabte, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah chada shabta. So they decided make it a 3-to-1 ratio. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah has 1 week, and Rabban Gamliel has 3 weeks. So you could tell Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, look, we made a mistake. We were a little bit trigger happy. We probably shouldn't have gotten rid of him. You're doing a great job, but you're not his equal. You're much younger than him. You don't have the same background as him, but we'll still keep you in there. Once every 4 weeks, we want you to give the drasha. In the other 3 weeks, it'll be him. V'hainu damar mar, and that explains the following story. There was a story in Masechet Chagigah where there were students that came to visit Rabbi Yehoshua, and they were just in the yeshiva. So Rabbi Yehoshua asked them the following: Shabbat shel mi hayta? Whose Shabbat was it? Now, unless you know the story, you have no idea what Rabbi Yehoshua is asking. The students come and ask Rabbi Yehoshua a question. Rabbi Yehoshua says, "Whose Shabbat was it?" What does that mean? But now that you know that there's a rotation, he wanted to know who gave the drasha this Shabbat. Shel Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah hayta. So they answered, "Oh, it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah spoke this week. It was his week." Ve'oto talmid. Go back to the beginning of the story. Who was the student, the troublemaker, who came, asked Rabbi Yehoshua, "Is tefillat Arvit reshut or chova?" He said, "Reshut." Then he went and he asked Rabban Gamliel, "Is tefillat Arvit reshut or chova?" He said, "Chova." He said, "It's mandatory." So he said, "Oh yeah, Rabbi Yehoshua said something else." Who was that student? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Hava. He was Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, the famous Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, one of the Tanaim, the famous Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai of Lag BaOmer, the famous Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai of the Zohar. He was our troublemaker. What happened was, he went and he asked Rabban Gamliel a question and Rabbi Yehoshua a question, and he caused a whole big fight. Okay? A lot to discuss here. I want to just take a minute to just reflect. Why did the Gemara leave it until the end? Because at the beginning of the story, this looked really bad. Major machloket, kicking a rabbi out, causing a lot of issues, learning that we made mistakes, learning that there was a bunch of people that wanted to study Torah that they couldn't, learning that maybe Rabban Gamliel has been doing things incorrect. At that time, if you want to say it's Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, people are going to have a very negative view of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. But at the end of the story, it wasn't too bad. Actually, it was a pretty good ending. They made peace. Rabban Gamliel was humbled. He came down to earth. He saw what people are doing. He asked for forgiveness. Rabbi Yehoshua forgave him. The Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah also became this. They had a new person part of the rotation. It was good. So now they said, by the way, we'll tell you, it was Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. It was actually him. Because at this point, you realize it was a good ending. Now, the story starts off by Rabban Gamliel being very harsh, and we gave him the benefit of the doubt that he was doing it for the right reason. That happened once on Rosh Hashanah. It happened again, but the third time the rabbi said, like, Rabban Gamliel, you're taking it too far. Derech Eretz Kadma la Torah. No matter how important you think this position and role is, Derech Eretz come first, and you're not having Derech Eretz. So they stepped in. What's amazing is that it wasn't necessarily the boss. It was the people. The people didn't accept it. If people see something that they don't accept, especially when there's a disrespect of any rabbi, the people have a responsibility to step up, and they did. And then through that, actually, shalom ended up coming through. The discussion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah accepting this position, we learn that, what did I want to say? Oh, I wanted to say this idea of this whole story of one rabbi disrespecting another rabbi, losing his position, coming through. We actually do learn a lot of halachot and important messages that comes through this. And one of the things that we learn is that it is better to have a rabbi that is a zaken, who is elder, that is older. It's more appropriate not to have a young one. But because they didn't want to pick Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and it was like one of the things against him that he was young. But in this situation, there was a miracle done for him. The way the Rambam explains is that he was very wise, he worked very hard, so they accepted it, which also teaches us that you should accept the young rabbi. And you should still keep in mind the dynamic that if there's a younger rabbi and an older rabbi, the older rabbi takes precedence. You have to give that older rabbi the respect. They're not equals. It's not a 50-50. It's a 75-25. These are very important rules for anyone that's deciding. If you're on a rabbi search committee, if you ever have to fire a rabbi, if you're ever on any synagogue board and you have issues with your rabbis, it's a very important Gemara to learn. And then at the end of the story, you end up learning that Shalom al Yisrael, there was a lot of peace. There also has to be humility. As great as a rabbi as you are, if you hear someone, you can't say, "Oh, you're a baby, I don't take you seriously." You have to take anyone seriously, everyone seriously. Rabbi Yehoshua was not actually, he actually wasn't young. He was actually elder than him. But he ended up seeing that maybe I was wrong. You have to have the intellectual humility to understand that I have conviction for my thoughts, but I also understand that maybe I could be wrong. That's another thing we learned from this. Rabban Gamliel was doing it l'shem shamayim, but he took it too far. And when he took it too far, the people, to their credit, stepped in and said, "We're not going to let you disgrace a rabbi," and they kicked him out. They created a situation where their rabbi did teshuvah, and actually it was a net positive, and this was all in the zechut of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who asked this question of Tiflat Arvit Reshut or Chovah. Non-consequential questions. Whether Arvit is Reshut or Chovah, it's not so important. Now there's ways of connecting it, but what the point here is that through this whole thing we had Masechet Eduyot is learned, Bo Bayom, anytime there was something done on that day, and we also learned a very important concept of Midu Tamidim Harbe, have as many students as you possibly can. There's no idea of you don't deserve it, you don't deserve to be in the yeshiva because you're not genuine, not like that. We have a rule that even if someone is not coming for the right reasons, they should continue to study Torah, even if it's not for the right reasons. Why? Because eventually they will come to love Torah, they will come for the right reasons. And you see here that the Gemara told us that Rabban Gamliel's approach of not inviting the students in was a wrong approach. You should try to increase Torah as much as possible. It should never be exclusive. It should not just be for this small group of elites. It should be for everyone. Whoever wants to study Torah, whoever wants to come should be included. Okay, so this is the story. There's a lot of discussions. What I'd like to do for our next shiur is just wrap up this concept of Tefilat Arvit. Actually, I'll just say now, we spoke about this. Tefilat Arvit is Reshut in the sense that we don't do Chazara. And there are times where the fact that if there is a mitzvah overet, you would be allowed to not do Arvit for that. But practically speaking, for all intents and purposes, Arvit is required. It is chovah because that's basically how the halacha has been become. We have to pray Arvit. It's not optional in that if you don't want to pray Arvit, you don't have to. It's optional that if you have another mitzvah that comes in conflict with Arvit, then that other mitzvah, if it's time-bound, will take precedence. That's it. Otherwise, we're required to do it. And that's the end of the story. Okay, any questions on the story?
Example of a mitzvah that is important to do and not to do it.
Yes, an example, not necessarily important, but that it's time-bound. The example we gave is, let's say, for example, if someone didn't pray Arvit and he has an hour or 2 hours left to the night, and they come and they tell him, you have a very important mitzvah to do, mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. You want to go visit someone who's sick. Or a mitzvah of Kibud Avayim, for example. A parent comes and asks you a question. Like, in general, these things, there is a concept of mitzvah, but before you started, you might say, let me pray, and then afterwards go do the mitzvah. But this rule is telling us, no, Arvit is Reshut. When you're in a situation like that, you don't have to worry about Arvit. I'm going to miss minyan. It's okay. It's not if you're doing a mitzvah for Arvit specifically, you're quicker to go do other mitzvot. Why? Because we don't have a korban corresponding to it. Remember, there's a tekeves echad taseh b'boker, v'tekeves hashini taseh ben arba'im. The Gemara told us that there's a korban of the morning, that's shacharit. Korban of the afternoon, that's mincha. What is Arvit corresponding to? You guys remember?
Burning of the fat.
Very good. Burning of the fats and limbs of this mincha offering that they have all night long to burn the leftover fats and limbs. But very often they didn't burn the fats and limbs. They took care of it during the day. So Arvit is not required in the same sense as shacharit and mincha. Practically speaking, in all intents and purposes, we pray Arvit. I don't want people coming out and saying we don't need to pray Arvit. We do, but it's just a background of how this was done in Halacha. Beit Midrash next week is Rosh Hashanah, so we're not going to have shiur. I think the week after that we potentially can. It's Erev Yom Kippur, so we could still potentially have shiur. Wednesday night. So it's the night before, so we could potentially do that. But then after that, we're going to have Sukkot and we're going to have Shmini Atzeret. So we have a month coming with not that much learning. Yes.
Do want to push that day, they open the doors there. Rabban Gamliel was there, right? And they covered every matter of halacha. There was nothing unanswered by him. Was he just getting overruled constantly?
We don't know that. Okay, it's a good question. We don't know if he was getting overruled. We just know that he was involved and that he wasn't like out of it. Also, there is a commentary that Art Scroll quotes it, that when we say that day, it doesn't really mean that day. It was a period of time. Maybe it was a few weeks. And over the course of a few weeks, they answered all their questions. Although it's pretty clear that that day, if you at face value, means it all happened on one day. There's a commentator that the Art Scroll quotes that it wasn't actually that day. It was just that short period of time. It was as short as a day. Almost, that's how you would explain it. We don't know if he was constantly being overruled, but we know that at least this one incident with the Yehuda Geramoni that he was overruled. Okay, Azak Baruch. Have a great week, everyone.